I'm Lloyd Holliday, and this is the Cost of a Thing podcast. Thanks for listening in today. The Cost of a Thing podcast is about the American standard of living. And I believe that the American standard of living was better in the 1960s and even into the 70s. And I'm going to be talking in these podcasts about issues that are reducing the American standard of living. And also, sometimes I'll talk about things that might be increasing the American standard of living and making it better for us. And there are some of those. Okay, today I'm going to take a little break from the top 10 super rip-off list that I've been working on. I've got the first 3 done: housing, medical, and college. I think we can all agree those are super rip-offs, and I've done those podcasts, one on each of those, an overview of each one. And now I want to do something a little different. It is a rip-off. It's the music rip-off. And as I always do, when I want to analyze something, compare it, I look for a frame of reference. And again, I'm using the 1960s music as the frame of reference here to compare to today's music. And even though the music ripoff is not in the top 10 super ripoffs list that I've been doing, the bad music today, I think, represents a significant standard of living reduction. Even though it's not an economic reduction in standard of living, it's just a general reduction in standard of living, because life's just not as good when there's not this great music. And I don't know why that all that great music came out during that period. I can speculate a little bit. Maybe it was the years after World War II there. They were just so happy, and they raised such great kids because everybody was so happy they'd won the war, and they had this energy and this exuberance, and it just led into a great creativity in everybody, or in a lot of people, and that's kind of where that came from, that great energy that was there after the United States and the Allies won World War II, because a lot of it came out of all the countries that had won, England and America. And I think there's something to that. There was a great creativity during that period. It wasn't just music. It was also on TV, the TV shows of the time. If you look back to the shows in the 60s and 70s, they were some of the greatest shows that they ever made. And it went into the other arts, too. I mean, there was a lot of artistic, just brewing over creativity. Maybe it was pent up from the war years, and it was just all, just blossoming out during that period. But it was just a great period for music. The night, especially even into the 50s, some of the 50s music was great too, but primarily in the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s too. It was just a great period, and I don't think it may never be matched for the creativity and just the number and the depth of songs. There wasn't just 1 or 2 songs out at a time. There was like 20 good songs out at a time. And then the next couple weeks there'd be a whole nother 20. Every week you'd have a different chart with, the top 20 or top American top 40 or whatever. Billboard had their song list out, the top songs every week. And just for an example of just 1 week, this was a chart out of my book, The Cost of a Thing, where this is page 161. I'm going to put it up here, and this is the top 20 songs for the week of Sunday, July 25th, 1965. In the novel, one of the characters is greatly interested in music, and he is frequently looking at these music charts as he lives through the 1960s there. There are about a dozen or so of these music charts in the book, and they come up as the characters live through the times of that music. And I made the charts from songs that were hits on the specific dates on the charts. I just happened to choose the July 25th, 1965 music chart as part of the story in the novel was set right at that time. You could pick any week, any random week through the whole 1960s, and you'd have a similar concentration of great songs, I would say every week. That's how good the music was during that time, and there were so many great groups and so many great individual singers and songwriters and arrangers, and just there were hundreds of great musicians and singers during that time, maybe thousands. And if you go down the list, 1 through 20 on that list, unbelievable the quality and the creativity and the timelessness of these songs, the melodies, the words. They were just, all of them, almost every one on there is a beautiful song with a beautiful melody, just impeccably made and arranged and sang so beautifully. And you can go down the list. You got The Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, What's New Pussycat, Tom Jones, I'm Henry VIII, What the World Needs Now, Jackie D. Shannon, Cara Mia. These were all great singers, and I Can't Help Myself, the Four Tops, Yes, I'm Ready by Barbara Mason, Mr. Tambourine Man by the Byrds, Wooly Bully. It's unbelievable to me that all these songs came out in that same week or two period there and all wound up on the top 20 chart that same week. It's just unbelievable. I mean, everybody, even young people, probably have heard these songs, and they are that good that they'll carry on probably for hundreds of years into the future. Yeah, I see you go down the list there. You got another one by Herman Sermon's Wonderful World. That's a beautiful song. I think they remade that one. Baby, I'm Yours, Barbara Lewis. Beautiful melody. Beautiful. Just it'll just knock you off your feet. Hold Me, Thrill Me by Mel Carter. Elvis has one on there. Crying in the Chapel. And there's a nice couple of instrumental. There's an instrumental there. That one by Black Forest. It's a beautiful instrumental that you'd probably recognize even if weren't around in that time period. And if you young people, they probably know. Yeah, all these songs we know they came before you were here, but the years before you were here. But you probably think, well, that was a long, long period of time, and they had a lot of time to get all these great songs written. No, a lot of these songs all came in a concentrated, not all of them, but they came in this concentrated time period. And there was like 10 or 20 great songs by these great legendary groups, all out at the same time and overlapping and just layering on each other. It was I'm trying to explain how it was to live during that time with this just coming out on the radio. I'd sit there with my transistor radio as a kid. I was just a kid at that time. And it was just like magic coming out of that radio. Every week, these new songs would come out. Just you think, how can they be that good? They're just better than the last week, which were almost too good to be true then. So if you were there and you remember these great songs, well, I'd encourage you to go out there on YouTube, and they're probably all out there in many different versions. A lot of them are live versions, and some of them have new enhanced audio and stereo. They're in good stereo, good remade, digitalized, and that kind of thing. And they're just most of them are just beautiful sound coming even in on your computer speakers. And especially if you weren't here, if you want to know kind of how it was to live back then, and of course the music aspect of that time period was one of the great things about it. And you just listen to any of these songs right here on this list that I've got up on the screen, and just sit back and put on your headphones, and you'll fall right back into the 1960s. I do it all the time. I go up on YouTube, and I don't even pull out my old records anymore, hardly. Once in a while I'll use like an iPod or something like that to find an old song, but most of them are right up on YouTube, and you can find them right on there. This one I was listening to the other day, Yes, I'm Ready by Barbara Mason. Just a beautifully done song, and it's a live version from like a 60's dance show or something she's on. And she's just a beautiful young woman, and a beautifully done song, and it's just a pleasure to watch that. I never even saw that before. Some of these YouTube videos, if say when we were kids in the 1960's, if you didn't watch that show while it was playing, I mean, say they came on at say 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night on a Wednesday, and say you weren't able to watch it, that's it. You missed it. There was no recording it. There was no YouTube. There was no film of it. So you had to watch it right then and there. You had to be there to watch that. And luckily I saw a lot of them that way when I was a kid on like some of the shows of the time, Ed Sullivan Show. They had a lot of variety shows, Smothers Brothers, a lot of the dance shows like American Bandstand, you'd see them on there. What's that other one with the Soul Train, had a lot of live groups on there. So I encourage you to go back and relive those years on YouTube, or if you weren't there, you can go back and see how it was, see how great it was. That was one of the great things about it. Now, there wasn't everything great about that. There was the Vietnam War going on, even in 1965 at the time there. But as a kid, that didn't really affect me at that time. And the other night I sat down, and I'll do this sometimes, like on a weekend night. I'll feel like playing some music. I'll kind of take on the role of the DJ in the household here, and I'll go on YouTube and I'll just start picking out some great old songs. And the other night I know I played Baby I'm Yours. That's number 17 on that list on the screen there by Barbara Lewis. And that is just a fabulous song. I just go right back into that time period, and I'm back there in my own mind. It's long gone in years, but it's back. It's in my head still, and I go right back to it. And I'm sure that even if you weren't there, you will feel a little bit of the feel of that time period, even if you weren't there and you're a young person. And I'd listen to those and just try. I would try just to kind of fall into that music and let it take you away, because that's what it does. It'll take you away. And many of the YouTube videos are, well, they're just audio only, or they have like a little photo montage with it that somebody set up, or some of them have the words to the song going across the screen as it plays. But there are many of the videos that are live performances, and those are quite nice because, well, it really lets you look back in time there and see how things were and see the performance right there as it was at the time. And then if you, also what I find interesting and you might want to look at is the actual comments on these videos, on these YouTube videos, because some of the people who were there, they make comments and, there's kind of some insight there as to how things were at the time and other comments, and, they're kind of interesting sometimes. Okay, and what I'm going to do is two groups of YouTube video links, and I'll put them in the description below. Maybe I'll do 5 or 6 or 7 of my favorite songs or ones that I found great videos to from the chart there on the screen from 1965. And then I'll do another link, another set of links from the songs that I played last Saturday night. I think I played like 7 of them. And I'll try to find ones with videos and of the actual artist singing and the group or the individual, and to kind of give you that feel, a little better feel of the 60s there. And so if you're interested in that kind of thing, check those out, and I hope you like them. And I'm sure you will. I believe you will if you're a music fan. And you may find yourself up dancing, either by yourself or with your partner or whoever you happen to be with. And if you haven't listened to any of my podcasts before, I've explained before in other podcasts that there's really 2 reasons that I'm doing these podcasts. One is because I think these issues are important. Standard of living is important, and I don't think it's being talked about enough out there, and I think these issues need to be out there. And I like to talk about the music from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and even 50s too. I'll be doing some of that, and some of the other issues that are out there. And the other reason is to bring attention to the novel that I wrote called The Cost of a Thing. And as you can see, that's the cover of the novel right there. Just very briefly, the novel is about a family who raised their kids in the 1960s, and that's contrasted with their children who raised their kids in the 2000s. And of course, what I'm trying to show there is the great contrast between those 2 time periods. And the characters in the novel face many of the same issues that are discussed in these podcasts. And the characters in the part of the novel that's set in the 1960s, of course, we're listening to all of this great 1960s music. And that's all through the novel. And what I was trying to do with this novel, partially, is try to recreate, of course, how it was to live in the 1960s. I grew up in the 1960s, and so I tried to put my take on how it was to be a kid in the 1960s. And I hope that this novel will become sort of at least one record of how it was back then. Well, even though it is fictional, I think, I tried for an authentic depiction of the time, of that time, and of the other times that the novel is set in. And if The Cost of a Thing novel sounds interesting to you, then there's the link to the Amazon book seller. And there's some more information about it over there. And I am going to be doing a individual podcasts doing a little more detailed summary of the book and some comments and thoughts about it in the next few weeks. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I'm going to be doing that in the next few weeks. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up podcast number 6, the music ripoff, and but we still have all that great music, as you can see, out there on YouTube and in every other form there is. It's one of the many gifts from the past, the people of the past, and they have given us many, many, many gifts that made our lives in the present time much, much better. And I hope we can do that for the people in the future. And even though the music ripoff wasn't one of the super top 10 ripoffs on my list, I'm going to be getting back to that list, and next podcast will be super ripoff number 4 on that top 10 list of the ripoffs, which I believe are lowering our standard of living today below that that was in the 1960s. Thank you for listening in today, and until next time, this is Lloyd Holiday signing off.